I stood at the station platform watching the last train pull away, and the silence that followed felt heavier than my bag. The cold seeped through my jacket, but I barely noticed. My phone screen glared back at me, 9:47 p.m. No missed calls, no messages, just the fading brightness of my lock screen showing a family photo from 2 years ago, back when I still believed I mattered to them. I had texted Mum 3 hours earlier. Finishing late tonight, can someone pick me up at 9? Read at 6:23 p.m. No reply. I called Dad. Voicemail. I tried my sister Lily's number. It rang once, then went to voicemail. She'd declined it. The station was emptying out, workers heading to warm cars and waiting families. I watched a father scoop up his daughter, her laughter echoing across the platform. Something twisted in my chest. Not quite pain, more like the dull recognition of something I'd never really had. I sat down on the metal bench, the cold seeping through my slacks. My feet ached from the double shift, and my shoulders burned from carrying trays for 12 hours straight. The restaurant had been understaffed again, and I'd volunteered to cover. I always volunteered. Good, reliable Eleanor, never complaining Eleanor. At 10:15, I called home again. Mum answered this time. Eleanor, what is it? I'm watching Lily's dance performance video. I'm still at the station, Mum. I asked someone to pick me up hours ago. A pause. Not the concerned kind, the irritated kind. Oh, Eleanor, your father and I are busy. Lily has her college interview tomorrow morning. We're helping her prepare. Can't you just take a taxi? Mum, I don't have enough money. I spent everything on... On what? Eleanor, you need to learn to manage your finances better. Lily never has these problems. Look, we're really busy. Figure it out. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, waiting for something to crack open inside me. Anger, maybe. Tears. Something that felt appropriate for this moment. Instead, there was just that familiar numbness, the same feeling I'd carried for years, so constant I'd stopped noticing it was there. Lily's interview, of course. Lily's dance recital, Lily's graduation, Lily's everything. I was 24, Lily was 19. In the 5 years since she had become the centre of their universe, I'd slowly drifted to the periphery, then beyond it entirely. I told myself it was natural. She was younger, still building her future. I was already working, already independent. They were just helping her the way they'd helped me once. Except they hadn't. Not really. I'd paid for my own college through scholarships and 3 part-time jobs. I'd bought my own clothes, my own books, my own everything since I was 16. When I'd asked for help, they'd said it would build character. When Lily asked for help, they called it investment in her future. The station lights flickered. 11 o'clock p.m. I pulled my jacket tighter and scrolled through old messages. There weren't many. Most of my texts to the family group chat went unanswered. The few responses were brief. Okay. Busy. Later. I found a message from 8 months ago. Mum, I got promoted to shift supervisor. They're increasing my pay. Mum had replied 6 hours later. That's nice, Eleanor. Lily got accepted into the dance academy. We're so proud. I remembered staring at that message in the restaurant bathroom, wondering why my throat felt so tight. There was another from last Christmas. Can I come home for dinner? Dad, we're having a small celebration for Lily, maybe next time. I'd spent Christmas eating convenience store noodles in my studio apartment. At midnight, the station manager approached me. Miss, we're closing up. You need to leave. I'm waiting for my family. His expression softened with pity, and I hated it. There's a bus stop 2 blocks down. Last bus leaves at 12:30. I nodded and stood, my legs stiff from sitting in the cold. The walk to the bus stop felt longer than it was. Every step echoed in the empty streets, and with each one I felt something inside me compressing, growing smaller and harder. The bus stop was deserted. I checked the schedule, 12:30, like he'd said. I had 15 minutes. I sat on the bench and closed my eyes. When had it started? When had I become invisible? Maybe it was when Lily was born. I was 5 then, old enough to remember how everything shifted. The way Mum's eyes lit up differently. The way Dad's voice got softer. They'd asked me to be a good, big sister, to help out, to understand. I had understood. I'd understood so well that I'd spent 19 years trying to earn back their attention by being perfect. Perfect grades, perfect behaviour, perfect, invisible Eleanor who never needed anything. The bus pulled up at 12:35. I climbed aboard, paid the fare with the last of my change, and found a seat at the back. Through the window, the city blurred past, lights and shadows mixing together like watercolours in rain. I got off 3 stops from my apartment. The walk home was quiet, just the sound of my footsteps and the distant hum of traffic. My building was old, the kind with flickering hallway lights and thin walls. I climbed to the 3rd floor, unlocked my door, and stepped into the darkness. I didn't turn on the lights. I just stood there in my tiny apartment. 1 room, a bathroom, a kitchenette, and felt the weight of every moment that had led me here. Every forgotten birthday, every cancelled plan, every time I'd convinced myself it didn't matter, that I was being dramatic, that they loved me in their own way. My phone buzzed. A message from Lily. "Can you lend me 200? Need a new dress for the interview? We'll pay you back." She wouldn't pay me back. She never did. The last loan had been 6 months ago, $500 for dance shoes. Before that, $300 for a weekend trip. Before that, more, always more. I sat down on my bed and typed. "I don't have it right now." "Sure." Reply came instantly. "Come on, Eleanor. Don't be difficult. You know how important this is." Difficult. I was being difficult. I deleted my response and wrote instead, "I'll see what I can do. Thanks. You're the best. Love you." Love you. 2 words I learnt to distrust because they always came with a price tag attached. I lay back on the bed without changing clothes, still in my work uniform, still smelling like grease and coffee. The ceiling had a water stain shaped like a bird. I'd noticed it the day I moved in and never bothered to report it. One more thing that didn't matter. Sleep came slowly, and with it, a strange thought. What if I just stopped? Stopped trying? Stopped caring? Stopped being available for them to forget? But I didn't know how. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. I stared at them, my heart hammering, instantly thinking something terrible had happened. I called Mum back. "Eleanor, where have you been? We've been trying to reach you." I was asleep. "What's wrong? Is everyone okay?" "We went to the station last night to pick you up. You weren't there. We waited until 3 a.m. Where were you?" My mind went blank. "What?" "We remembered you needed a ride. Your father and I drove out there. We called and called. Why didn't you answer?" I pulled the phone away from my ear and checked the call log. All the missed calls were from 2 a.m. onward, hours after I'd left the station, hours after I'd texted, called, begged for help. "Mum, I was at the station at 9 p.m. I called you. You told me to take a taxi." "I don't remember that. You must be confused. We would never leave you stranded." Something in my chest cracked. Not broke, just cracked enough to let something cold seep in. "You did leave me stranded. I was there for hours. I called everyone." "Eleanor, don't be dramatic. We're telling you we went to get you. Why are you being so ungrateful? We were worried sick." The phone felt heavy in my hand. Too heavy. Everything felt too heavy. "I have to go to work," I said, my voice flat. "Eleanor, don't you dare." I hung up. My hands were shaking. I pressed them against my thighs until they steadied, then got up and went through my morning routine on autopilot. Shower, uniform, coffee. The motions were familiar enough that I didn't have to think, which was good because thinking felt dangerous right now. Work was the same as always. Smile, take orders, deliver food, smile again. My manager praised me for being so reliable. A customer told me I had a lovely disposition. I said thank you and meant none of it. During my break, I sat in the back alley and stared at my phone. Part of me wanted to call them back, to explain, to make them understand, but I'd been explaining for 24 years and they'd never heard me. Why would today be different? Lily texted, "Did you transfer the money yet?" I didn't reply. Another text, "Eleanor, hello?" I turned off my phone. That evening I walked home instead of taking the bus. It was a long walk, nearly 2 hours, but I needed the movement, needed the cold air, needed something to focus on besides the growing hollowness inside me. My apartment felt different when I returned. Smaller, maybe, or I felt bigger, like I'd expanded to fill more space than I'd been allowing myself. I sat at my small table and opened my laptop, pulling up my bank account. I had $3,847 saved. It had taken me 2 years to save that much. Every month, after rent and food and the money I loaned to Lily, I'd put away whatever was left. Sometimes it was 50, sometimes 20. Once, it was 3. I looked at that number, $3,047, and wondered what I was saving for. A future? What future? One where I kept working double shifts to afford a slightly less depressing apartment. One where I kept being forgotten by the people who were supposed to love me most. I opened a new tab and searched for flights. Anywhere. Everywhere. Places I'd never been, never imagined going. The numbers blurred together, but I kept scrolling, kept looking, kept imagining a version of myself that wasn't standing at train stations waiting for people who would never come. My phone was still off. I liked the silence. 3 days passed like that. Work, walk, silence. My phone stayed off. I stopped checking my email. I spoke to customers and co-workers with the same pleasant mask I'd always worn. But beneath it, something was shifting. That crack in my chest was widening, and through it, I could feel something I hadn't felt in years. Nothing. Not numbness, not pain. Just clean, clear nothing. Like standing in an empty room with good acoustics, where every sound rings true. On the 4th day, my manager pulled me aside. "Eleanor, your mother has been calling the restaurant. She says it's an emergency and you won't answer your phone. Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine. She's just dramatic." He looked uncertain, but nodded. "Okay. Well, if you need anything." "I don't." That night, I turned my phone on. 43 messages, 12 voicemails. I didn't read or listen to any of them. Instead, I blocked all their numbers, one by one. Mum, Dad, Lily, even some extended family who'd probably been recruited to reach me. Block, block, block. Each tap felt like removing a stone from my pocket. Lighter, freer. I unblocked them after an hour. Not because I forgave them, but because I wanted to choose silence rather than have it chosen for me. I wanted to see their messages and actively decide they didn't deserve responses. The messages were what I expected. Anger, guilt-tripping, confusion about why I was acting out. Lily's were the most honest. "Why are you being such a bitch? I needed that money." I replied to that one. "No, just no." Her response came in seconds. "No what?" "No to everything. No more money. No more covering for you. No more pretending this is normal." What the hell is wrong with you? Are you having a breakdown? Maybe I was. Or maybe this was the opposite. A breakthrough. But I didn't explain. I just put the phone down and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up and something felt wrong. Not wrong. Different. The wrongness was actually in how right things suddenly seemed. I lay there, staring at the ceiling bird, and realised I felt lighter than I had in months. Years, maybe. I got up and looked in the bathroom mirror. Same face, same tired eyes, but something in my expression had changed. I looked like someone who'd put down a heavy bag and was still getting used to the lack of weight. Work was different that day. Not the actual work, that was the same. But I moved through it differently. When my manager asked if I could cover someone's shift, I said no. Just like that. No explanation, no apology, just, no, I have plans. I didn't have plans, but I could have plans. I could make plans. The possibility felt revolutionary. During my break, I sat in the alley and opened my laptop. I looked at those flights again. This time, I clicked through. Prices, dates, destinations. I imagined myself in each place, walking through streets where nobody knew me, where I had no history of being forgotten. I didn't book anything. Not yet. But I saved the searches. When I got home, there was someone waiting outside my building. Dad. He looked older than I remembered, though it had only been 3 months since I'd last seen him. Or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time. Eleanor, we need to talk. Do we? He blinked, surprised by my tone. I was surprised too. I'd never used that voice with him before. Flat, uninterested, done. Your mother and I are very worried about you. This behaviour, ignoring us, blocking our numbers, it's not like you. How would you know what I'm like? What's that supposed to mean? I leaned against the building's entrance, my keys in my hand. You forgot to pick me up from work. You told me to figure it out myself. Then you got mad at me for not being there when you finally showed up hours later. And now you're here because I'm not responding the way you want me to. That's what this is. That's not fair, Eleanor. We made a mistake. We were busy with Lily's interview prep, and it's always Lily every single time. That's not true. We love you both equally. I laughed. It came out harsh and bitter, nothing like the pleasant sounds I made at work. You don't even know my favourite colour. What? My favourite colour. Do you know it? He opened his mouth, then closed it. Eleanor, this is ridiculous. You're being childish. It's blue, dark blue, like the ocean at night. I've had the same favourite colour since I was 7. You've never asked, not once. I pushed off the wall and moved toward the door. I have to go. Wait, Eleanor, please. Your mother's very upset. Lily's upset. This is tearing the family apart. I'm not tearing anything apart. I'm just not holding it together anymore. There's a difference. What do you want from us? The question hung in the air between us. What did I want? An apology? Recognition? Years of missed attention suddenly delivered in a neat package? Nothing, I said finally. I don't want anything from you. You don't mean that? I do. I went inside and left him standing there. My hands didn't shake as I climbed the stairs. My chest didn't hurt. I just felt clear and certain, like I'd finally said something true after years of saying what was expected. The apartment was cold. I turned on the heat and made tea, then sat at my table with my laptop. I pulled up those saved flight searches and looked at them again. One kept catching my eye, a one-way ticket to a coastal city 10 hours away. Not impossibly far, but far enough. A place with an ocean and opportunities and no history. I clicked through to the booking page. My cursor hovered over the Confirm Purchase button. $847, nearly a quarter of my savings. My practical mind said it was foolish, impulsive, the kind of decision made by people who were running away from problems instead of solving them. But what was there to solve? You can't fix people who don't think they're broken. You can't make yourself matter to people who've decided you don't. I pressed Confirm. The confirmation email arrived instantly. Departure date? 2 weeks from now. One way, no return. I sat back and let out a breath I hadn't realised I'd been holding. 2 weeks! I had 2 weeks to figure out my life, find a job in the new city, maybe arrange for temporary housing, pack up what little I owned. It should have felt terrifying. Instead, it felt like the first real decision I'd made in years. Over the next week, I worked my shifts and said nothing to anyone about my plans. I applied for jobs online during my breaks, putting down a friend's address in the new city as my location. I researched neighbourhoods and apartment shares. I sold most of my furniture on second-hand apps. I didn't have much, and what I had barely qualified as furniture anyway. My family kept trying to contact me. I let most messages go unanswered, responding only when their guilt trips became too aggressive with simple, non-committal phrases. I'm fine. Busy with work. Talk later. Lily sent increasingly angry texts about the money I'd refused to lend her. I didn't engage. Mum called the restaurant twice more. My manager stopped mentioning it after I asked him to. On my last day of work, I gave notice. My manager was surprised. I'd been there for 3 years, reliable to a fault. Are you moving? He asked. Yes. Where to? Somewhere new. He didn't press for details. He thanked me for my service, wrote me a good reference letter, and shook my hand. It felt impersonal and exactly appropriate. I cleaned out my locker, said goodbye to the few co-workers I'd been friendly with, and walked out of the restaurant for the last time. The air was crisp and clean, and the city lights reflected off wet pavement from an earlier rain. Everything looked like a beginning. The night before my flight, I sat in my empty apartment with 2 suitcases and a backpack. Everything I owned that mattered. It wasn't much. Some clothes, some books, my laptop, documents, a few photos from childhood that I'd kept not because they made me happy, but because I thought I was supposed to keep them. I took those photos out now and looked through them. Me at 5, holding baby Lily with a forced smile. Me at 10, standing off to the side while Mum and Dad fussed over Lily's birthday cake. Me at 16, alone at my graduation because they'd gone to Lily's dance recital instead. Me at 20, not pictured anywhere because I'd stopped being included in family photos by then. I put them in the trash. Then I pulled out my phone and composed a message to the family group chat. I wrote and deleted it 4 times before settling on something simple. I'm moving away. I need space to figure out who I am, without trying to earn your attention. Don't contact me for a while. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Eleanor. I hit send before I could second guess it. The responses came immediately. Angry texts from Lily. Hurt, guilt-laden messages from Mum. A phone call from Dad that I declined. More messages, each one trying to pull me back into the familiar pattern of feeling bad for setting boundaries. I turned off my phone and went to sleep. The next morning, I woke before dawn. My flight was at noon, but I wanted to be gone from the apartment early, wanted to spend my last hours in the city somewhere that felt more like a beginning than an ending. I took the bus to the train station, the same one where they'd forgotten me. It looked different in the morning light, less lonely somehow. Or maybe I was different, less lonely, less waiting for someone else to give me permission to matter. I bought coffee from the station cafe and sat on a bench watching early commuters hurry past. Families, couples, people alone with their thoughts, all of them living their own stories, none of which included me. It felt good. At 10 a.m, I took the train to the airport. The ride was smooth and unremarkable. I watched the city pass by through the window, all those familiar streets and buildings becoming smaller, more distant, just scenery. The airport was crowded with travellers, everyone moving with purpose. I checked in, went through security, found my gate. Everything happened like it was supposed to. No drama, no forgotten rides, no waiting for people who wouldn't come. I had an hour before boarding, so I found a quiet corner and finally turned my phone back on. The messages had multiplied overnight. somewhere past 60 now. I didn't read them. Instead, I went to my settings and changed my number to one I'd set up earlier that week. A clean break. I sent one last message from the old number to the family chat. This number is disconnected. My new number is for WAVs emergencies only. Please respect my boundaries. Then I gave the old phone to a janitor I saw near the restrooms, told him it was paid off and he could keep it or sell it, whatever he wanted. He looked confused but grateful. I sat back down with just my new phone, no contacts saved yet, no history, just possibility, and waited for my boarding call. They called my section at 11:30. I stood, shouldered my backpack, wheeled my small suitcase to the gate, and handed over my boarding pass. The attendant scanned it and smiled. "Enjoy your flight." "Thank you." I walked down the jetway and onto the plane, found my seat by the window, stowed my bag, buckled in. Around me, other passengers were settling in, chatting with travel companions, checking phones, getting comfortable. I looked out the window at the tarmac. In a few minutes, we'd be taking off. In a few hours, I'd be landing somewhere new, and for the first time in my life, the person waiting for me on the other side would be me. The plane pushed back from the gate. The engines roared to life. We taxied to the runway, turned, paused. Then, the acceleration, that moment of total commitment where there's no going back, only forward. We lifted off. The city fell away beneath us, getting smaller and smaller until it was just a collection of lights and shapes, no different from any other city. I watched until we rose above the clouds, until there was nothing below but white and blue, clean and infinite. I leaned back in my seat and closed my eyes. Somewhere in this city I'd left behind, they might be calling my old number. They might be upset, confused, angry that I'd actually gone through with it. They might even be at the train station again, waiting to pick me up like they'd claimed they'd done that night, rewriting history to make themselves the good guys, in a story where they'd forgotten I existed. But I wasn't there. I wasn't waiting. I wasn't trying to matter to people who'd decided I didn't. I was here, 30,000 feet above the earth, flying towards something new. Not running away, just running toward myself finally, after 24 years of running toward their approval. The flight attendant came by with drinks. I ordered water, thanked her, and took a sip. It was just water, nothing special, but it tasted clean and good. I pulled out my laptop and opened a blank document. For years, I'd thought about writing down my story, not for them, but for me. A way to make sense of the patterns, to see clearly what I'd been too close to understand. I titled it "The Girl Who Stopped Waiting" and started typing. I wrote about the station platform, the cold, the unanswered calls, the moment Mum told me to figure it out myself. I wrote about every forgotten birthday, every cancelled plan, every time I'd made myself smaller so Lily could shine brighter. I wrote about the crack in my chest that had let the numbness drain out, leaving space for something clearer. I wrote until the flight attendant announced our descent. As the plane lowered through the clouds, the new city came into view, a sprawl of buildings and streets beside a vast, glittering ocean. Somewhere down there was my future, a job interview I had scheduled for next week, a room in a shared apartment with strangers who might become friends, streets I'd never walked, coffee shops I'd never tried, a life I'd build brick by brick without asking permission. The wheels touched down, the plane braked, we taxied to the gate. "Welcome to your destination," the captain said over the intercom. "Local time is 3:15 p.m. For those of you who are home, welcome home. For those just visiting or starting a new adventure, we wish you the best." Starting a new adventure? Yes, that's what this was. I gathered my things and filed off the plane with the other passengers. The airport here was bigger, brighter, full of people who had no idea who I was or what I'd left behind. I was nobody to them, which meant I could be anybody. I could be Eleanor, who said no when she meant no. Eleanor, who didn't wait for people who wouldn't come. Eleanor who mattered because she decided she mattered, not because someone else validated it. I walked through the terminal, following signs to ground transportation. Outside, the air smelled different, salt and sea and possibility. I hailed a cab and gave the driver the address of my new apartment. He nodded and pulled into traffic. Through the window, I watched the city pass by. Palm trees, ocean views, people on bikes and sidewalk cafes, everything felt open here, unwritten. The apartment was in a modest neighbourhood, the kind of place where people actually talk to their neighbours. My room was small, but had a window that faced east. I'd checked when I'd done the video tour. Morning light, new beginnings. I paid the cab driver, grabbed my bags and went inside. My new roommates weren't home. They'd said they worked day shifts. So I had the place to myself. I found my room, set down my bags and sat on the bed. It was quiet. Good quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from peace rather than loneliness. I unpacked slowly, putting clothes in the small dresser, books on the shelf, laptop on the desk. With each item I placed, the room became more mine. Not theirs. Not Lily's. Mine. When everything was unpacked, I opened the window. Ocean air drifted in, cool and clean. I could hear waves in the distance, a rhythmic sound that felt like breathing. I pulled out my new phone and started setting it up properly, added my email, downloaded the apps I needed, created new accounts for things I'd want access to. Then I opened my contacts and stared at the empty list. I could add their numbers. I still knew them by heart, but I didn't. Instead, I added my new job contact, my roommates' numbers, the local emergency services, things that mattered for the life I was building now. There was a knock at the door. One of my roommates, a woman named Jade, arriving home from work. We talked briefly over video chat when I'd arranged the room. She seemed nice, normal, the kind of person who wouldn't expect me to be invisible. "Eleanor, you made it!" She hugged me, quick and warm. "How was the flight?" "Perfect," I said and meant it. "Great, I'm making dinner if you want to join. Nothing fancy, just pasta and salad." "I'd love to." We cooked together, talking easily about simple things. Her job at a non-profit, my upcoming interview, good restaurants in the neighbourhood, the best beach for watching sunsets. Conversation that didn't require me to shrink or perform or earn my place. After dinner, I helped clean up, then excused myself to my room. I was tired from the flight, from the emotional weight of the past 2 weeks, from years of carrying things I was finally setting down. I changed into pajamas and climbed into bed. A new bed, in a new room, in a new city, in a new life. The sheets smelled like laundry detergent, clean and fresh. Through the window, I could see stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without looking, but something made me check. It was from Mum. She must have gotten my new number from somewhere. Maybe she'd called my old workplace, or maybe she'd tried every possible variation until one went through. "Eleanor, please come home. We're sorry. We miss you. We'll do better. Lily needs you. We need you. Don't throw away your family over one mistake." One mistake. As if it had been just one. I started typing a response, then stopped. Deleted it. Started again. Stopped. What could I say that would make them understand? What words could bridge the gap between their version of our story and the truth I'd lived? Nothing. There were no words for that. So instead I typed, "I'm not throwing away my family. I'm finding myself. There's a difference. Please respect my boundaries. I'll reach out when I'm ready." I hit send and blocked the number. Then I turned off my phone and set it on the nightstand. The room was dark now except for the moonlight coming through the window. I lay there, listening to the distant sound of waves, feeling the unfamiliar comfort of the mattress beneath me, breathing the salt-tinged air. I thought about them back in that city, Maybe sitting in the living room that had never quite felt like mine, wondering why I'd left, unable to see the pattern of years that had led to this moment. I thought about Lily, probably angry that her reliable source of money and emotional labour had disappeared. I thought about the train station platform where I'd stood in the cold, waiting for people who'd forgotten me, who'd later claimed they'd been there all along. And I realised something. They probably were at the station that night, eventually. Hours too late, but there nonetheless. And in their minds, that effort, showing up after the fact, after I'd given up and left, counted as caring. They'd waited at the station till dawn, maybe, in their version of the story. In their version, they were the devoted family, and I was the ungrateful daughter who'd disappeared. They'd rewritten the narrative to make themselves the heroes, but I wasn't living in their story anymore. I was writing my own. I closed my eyes and let myself drift towards sleep. Tomorrow, I'd wake up in this new place and start building a life that was mine. I'd go to my interview. I'd walk on the beach. I'd figure out who Eleanor was when she wasn't trying to earn love from people who'd already decided not to give it. Tomorrow, I'd begin. But tonight, I rested. And in the morning, when the sun came through my east-facing window and touched my face with warmth, I woke up feeling something I hadn't felt in years. I woke up feeling free.